Hi there. Today I'm going to talk about the three mistakes that you can do while implementing the para framework for yourself. These are some of the mistakes that I did, and these are pretty dangerous mistakes. And the reason is that because if you don't, if you do these mistakes, it is a good chance that you can stop your this implementing this para framework, and you can kind of it can derail your whole process. And what that does is you'll no longer have a second brain to rely upon. So these are really critical mistakes. Now, before jumping into the mistake, I just want to reiterate what para framework is. The para framework stands for projects, areas, resources, and archive. It was first introduced by Tiago Forte in his book Build a Second Brain, and that's what we are trying to do. We are building a second brain using this particular system. It's a very useful system, but as with anything, when you start doing something new, you make mistakes. These are some of the mistake that I did. Again, before jumping in, I just forgot about the key concept behind this framework. If you're not aware of it, the key concept is that you organize your information or your thoughts into nodes based upon the actionability. So you would, so if there's a particular information that you think is you want it in your right now projects, then you kind of store it in the project section. And if it is later, like for example, something related to passion, you kind of put it in the resources section, which you think it might be useful in future some point of time. So the key important is that how soon you're going to use that information for yourself. Now jumping into the, so that's the introduction. And if you need to know more, I have a couple of videos that I did um, before, so you can kind of reference that those videos. The link is in the description. You can go and do that. Now jumping into the three mistakes. The first mistake that I did is I created all the empty folders, projects, areas, resources, and archives. Now, this is where I actually got excited, a bit too excited, and I did this. That I want to implement the system right now, and I'll just go and start doing it. But what that did is, it kind of started. Once I created the folder, I suddenly started staring at those empty folders, and then I thought, okay, now I want have to put some notes in it, and I need to go searching for notes for it. And then what that does is, after some period of time, I kind of get stuck and I can't move forward. And suddenly, may some people might kind of and for some people it may be the end of the end of the implementation. Luckily for me, it was not, because I had a lot of notes already there which I was looking to organize, and this system kind of worked for me in the way that I could just pull those notes out and put it into that particular system so that it could work right out of the gate. And what benefit it gives is, like, I stop creating new folders. Now, if I don't create new folders until unless I've started working on it, or I know that that's very important. And what that does is that the my second brain, I can keep it trimmed and lean and efficient. It does not have any extra things into it, and it is something like I do it in programming, right? When programming, you don't write extra code, you just keep it lean. You try to keep it as you only write code which is absolutely required. You don't write anything else. So that's a similar system. And even if you consider the another example of gardening, yeah, you want to keep you don't want to put plants that you don't want inside your garden. Only want to keep key things inside the garden. And you don't want to keep empty pots around lying around. So that's the important bit. The second mistake that I did was, I would think hard on where to put a note on. So whenever I would try to put a note on, I would think hard, okay, where should I put it? Where should I put it? And this would take a lot of time. Now, this is a bit from a force of habit, again from programming world, because when you're doing programming, you have to think about where your piece of code should reside in. Because if it resides in the wrong place, it can cause a lot of side effects which you want to avoid. So, and I was doing the same thing here, but that is not the that's an anti-pattern for this particular system, which means you should not do that kind of a thing. The whole concept is that you should be able to move quickly and lightly. So what that means is that you should just intuitively, whenever you're trying to put a note in, you just think about where it should ideally go and just go with it. The reason is, whenever you are going to revisit the note the next time around, you will know where that note should be in the right place, where what the right place is for that particular note, and you can immediately do that. So the first time when you're doing it, when you're capturing and organizing that note, you just have to put it at the best place where you find it, you think it would be useful, and that should be like the first, within like 5 seconds or 10 seconds you can do it. But like some of us, it's hard to do take that quick decision. So you can kind of put a timer of a minute or two, and then think for it for 2 minutes. I know that 2 minutes are a very long time for thinking about where to put your note in, but yeah, that's one of the things you can kind of do to because that's a bit of um, what do you say? It's a bit of fear of not being right. But yeah, the whole process is you become. It doesn't have to be right. The key concept is you want the note to be in the first place. If it's in, it's easier to organize when you are going to action it. So that's that's the mistake. And the downside is that if you think too long for every note that you're putting in, you will stop doing it. You'll just feel that it's too much work. Why should you bother even doing all that work? And there's not much immediate return of investment. So that's another thing. Yeah. Moving on to the third mistake. So the third mistake is capturing and organizing the notes at the same time. Now, this is one of the things that I used to do even before implementing the para framework. I would kind of capture notes. I would try to find out what meant and how would I put it in, where would I put it in, and so on. Now, the problem with this approach is that your note taking process becomes inefficient. So whenever you are in a rush or between meetings, if you take a note and then you try to search where you want to put it in, it's very hard to do that because you have to switch mentally very fast. And what that does is like you feel that whenever you have to put a note in, it's a very hard work for you, and you just turn that activity off and you will not follow the system. And what that does is you leave your second brain unattended for a period of time. So to avoid doing that, what we do is here we are doing two activities like capture and organize. We split those two activities into two. Like we at the time when we are capturing the notes, we only capture the notes and we put it in the waiting area that I talked about in the last video. Again, if you can go and watch that video if you want to. And what that does is it gives you the freedom. You know what? Yeah, you just put that in the waiting room or waiting folder, and it will stay there. And so when at the time when you want to action it, or when you find that it is useful somewhere, you will know where to put it in. So what that does is it will keep make your organizing much more faster, because you're going to use it and you know where that node should reside. And the last bit, what that does is that it's again a little bit from programming, that you have like classes, you have the thing called single responsibility principle, that each class or each method should only do one thing and one thing alone. And when you're doing these two activities like creating and ordering, you're actually doing two things. So to avoid so yeah, from a programming perspective also, you're kind of violating that principle. And what that does is it becomes note taking becomes efficient. And one more thing is like you have to have a weekly review, for example, where you can go through all these waiting list notes. And what that does is when you do that, you will find that something which you felt was useful or relevant when you captured it, it might be not be useful or relevant at right now after a week down the line, or you won't find it exciting enough to be captured in the note. So what you do is you can simply delete the note. What that does is again keeps only things that are required for you and what you think that is required. So which means your brain again remains lean and efficient. It does not have any extra activities. Again, similar to going back to my programming example, you want your code to be lean. You don't want extra things in it. And if you look about at a garden, from a garden perspective, you don't want weeds, put the weeds in. It can come in, but this weekly review activity that if you do with the waiting area, it will kind of ensure that weeds don't come in into your brain and you have only things that are required. So those are the three things that you can do it. If you like this video, you can click on like and subscribe down below. Thank you. Bye.